It's 1 o'clock and we have a room full, so let's go ahead and get started. You're fine. So goal-based planning is being able to kind of map out your students' full-year plan based on what their end goal is. Now, that being said, let me just kind of throw this out. Some 14, 15-year-olds will say to you, I don't want to go to college, I'm going to do something else. And then it comes to 16, 17, and they think, oh, I think I want to go to community college or I want to go to a university. So sometimes that means that some doors have been closed that maybe you don't want closed. So sometimes what I recommend, unless you're just 100% sure, is go ahead and start the college process as far as doing the biology and algebra 1 and even go ahead with your social studies, the required courses. Go ahead and start those as if your student is going to go to college. Because if they decide like in 11th grade that they then want to go to college, it's almost impossible. You can't catch up on the math. So if you go ahead and start with like the algebra 1 and the geometry, then what you can do is if they still determine that's their path, then their junior and senior year, you can then pick math courses that will enable them to be stronger in where they're going and what they want to do. And so a lot of times that is really smart. You'd be surprised how many calls I get of someone who has a student going into even the 12th grade who says, oh no, they changed their mind. What do I do now? And sometimes there's nothing you can do. Or you have to start at a community college level with the remedial courses, which, don't count for college credit and kind of make things a little bit longer. So just a note, again, you're the parent, you choose, but you might want to keep that in mind. So once students start into high school, you have to keep track of all their classes. And a full year course, say like Algebra 1, that you're using a book and it takes all year to do it, is worth 1 credit. A half-year course like health or government or economics, those would be 0.5 credits. And so you kind of work through your year like that. You want to have your student take between 6 and 8 credits per year. And I really, really recommend that you focus in 9th and 10th grade on doing 8 because sometimes you're still kind of smart to your kid and they'll listen to what you're saying. And then when they get in 11th and 12th grade and you kind of lost some of your intelligence, and I say that, just because we know how sometimes teenagers are. But, and plus, they're not doing as much outside stuff. Usually by 11th or 12th grade, a student wants maybe a job. Maybe they're taking a dual enrollment class. Maybe they have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and that takes up time. And so if you've gotten the majority of your credits during that 9th and 10th grade time frame, then that takes a lot of the pressure off on 11th and 12th, which is always really, really helpful. So you definitely don't want to go more than 8 credits in a year. Colleges will look at that. If your student is going to go into the family business or something like that, we can juggle that, maybe get up to 9. But just kind of be aware your target is no more than 8 credits per year. So I am going to be answering questions at the end of each section. So if you have any questions, you can even go ahead and type them. A lot of times I end up answering them before the question comes up. So, but I will answer until we don't have any questions left. So as I started out with goal-based planning, it all is based on your student and their talents and where they want to go. Some students have been called into the ministry from an early age, and they know that that's the direction that they're going to. So that maybe the course might be, the academic course might be a little bit different. And so what I want to talk to y'all about is what you can do instead of some of the college-bound courses. So first, let's talk about English. English is the same no matter what, because no matter what business you go into, what you're doing, you have to be strong in reading and writing, and you have to be able to present yourself and your business and things like that. You have to be able to sell whatever it is you're selling. And so English is super important no matter what they're going to do. So high school English should include composition, literature. Oh, you know what? Let me do this. Let me pop up the planning sheet. Hang on just a second. And that might be really helpful. Oh, there's my little button. All right, hang on. I'm so sorry for this little bit of delay. I should have already had this done. All right, hang on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go under high school planning. And we're talking about goal-based. And then we're going to go into life choice path. And so here we go. All right, so here's goal-based planning for life choice path. There we go. And I think everyone can probably see this. All right. All right, so what you want to do is, if you're going to go ahead and fill out a planning sheet, which I really, really, really recommend, you'll want to fill it out in pencil. Some things may be adjusted, but going into the English, the reading, writing, and grammar are required. It's part of high school. As much writing and reading as you can get them to do is just good to just be a well-rounded person. And all those things together would equal 1 total credit. Now, we also tell college-bound students to include at least 1 year of world literature, 1 year of American literature, and 1 year of British literature. And that can be done really in any order that you want it done. And it can all be integrated into world literature. It doesn't have to be a separate curriculum, but it just needs to be things that they're familiar with. Because remember, we're going to start out kind of talking about a little bit of college, but then also telling you how you can modify for students that are doing something else. So that is your English. And you know, the thing is a lot of people think, let's just go to the library and check out books. And that's a great plan, except that you also need to include other things like poetry and short stories, different kinds of writing, plays, things like that. And also remember, if you have a student with a learning disability, maybe that finds reading difficult, a lot of times going to see the plays, maybe even reading the book along with a good movie version, anything like that, absolutely. However you can do it to really enhance their learning, we want to encourage you to do that. It doesn't have to be go sit down and read War and Peace. It can definitely be a lot of literature and movies and different things like that based on any problems that they might have. And I said this last week in our College Bound webinar, I really want to stress that regardless of what your student is going to do later in life as an adult, we want them to continue to love to learn. We want them to love it so much that they're going to continue to do it after they graduate high school. We want them to be prepared for whatever God has set for them. And so you as the parent are the best person to know what that is. So however it works, if you have a student with a disability, all of these courses can be modified, can be worked with in order to help your student have the best high school experience that they can. So in saying all of that, does anyone have any questions about English? If you do, go ahead and write it in the question area and we will answer it. I am happy to do that. And we'll just give a minute or so for questions to come up. And if they don't, we'll move on into math. All right, let's go ahead and go into math. If you do still have a question and you're typing, keep typing and go ahead and post it, and I'll answer it in the next break. So, math is a little interesting. You have so many options depending on what your student does. They can, as I said earlier, go ahead and start with Algebra 1 or pre-algebra and maybe go ahead and do geometry. There are a lot of trades that require especially geometry, even cosmetology, carpentry, those all require a basic knowledge of geometry. So it's not really going to be a waste of time to do those two courses. And that way, then if your student does decide to go to college, you don't have to catch up on anything. But then say you're hitting 11th grade and your student has decided to go into a trade. Some great math courses that would help for this would be things like accounting. If they're going to open up their own business, that's something that they would need to know. Business math is also a good place to start. Sometimes you just need to do a really solid review on arithmetic. And so what we can do with that is we can call it either integrated math or math for a trade. We've even had students that have done like math for taxidermists because, again, a lot of geometry is involved in that. And so they've studied a book and been able to get credit that way. Also, consumer math is a good course. Even though we also do personal finance, consumer math is a little bit more in depth and gives them a little bit more opportunity then to kind of make sure that they have their personal finances in order. And it talks a lot about interest rates and things. So it does give them those different options. So that's just some ideas for math. Again, based on what your student might be heading towards, you can definitely tailor that to their plans. So there's a lot of options on that. You can also simply do some foundational math courses, fractions and measurements and all of that. Those are all things that we need to know as adults. And sometimes they don't get it at 4th grade or 5th grade, so we need to go back and review it. And that's perfectly fine. So that would be some definite options for math. Statistics would be another one, kind of depending on what your student might want to do. If they're going to do any type of comparisons or having to do any type of marketing or something like that, you might want to look at a statistics course. That might be really helpful. So do we have any math questions? Okay, so Misty asked a question about her student being critiqued by a high school teacher that his writing is not on a high school level. Misty, I would say to that, I would definitely keep doing it. The more that they practice, the better they get. And you might also want to look at, I don't know what curriculum you have done, but some curriculum like Wordsmith and IEW. Wordsmith actually is somewhat of a middle school course, but it can also go into high school, but it's all different kinds of writing. And your student might really enjoy some of that, and that might encourage a little bit of the variation of the writing. Also, the more they read or listen to books, the better their writing is going to be. Their vocabulary is going to grow, and their knowledge is going to grow. So I think as he continues to do that, it's definitely going to get better. I just think I would continue with it without, kind of beating him over the head with it. Just let him do lots of different things. I would also have him do a journal. maybe 2 or 3 days a week, but not your typical, today I went to the store and then I went, not that kind of journal. There are lots of journal prompts that you can use, and it really gets them active in writing about something that they're comfortable with writing. And then sometimes what you can do is tell them starting in, and this is not for grade, by the way, but you would tell him, I want you to use 4 adverbs somewhere in this. And then let him pull those out. And I think that that would help his writing quite a bit. And also, I should have kind of said this at the very beginning, everybody. I'm sorry I didn't. But any questions you have specific to your student, if you will directly email me at Karen@HomeLifeAcademy.com, we can definitely go through different curriculum, different ideas. I have some reading lists that might help some of you. So anything like that, write, and let's see what we can do to make sure that your student has a really, really positive experience in high school. Okay, so no math questions, so that's awesome. So let's move on down into science. So you have to have 3 science credits. Now, a 4-year university is going to want at least 2 of those to have labs with them. A community college or trade school is probably going to be fine with just 3 sciences. So you can go ahead and do something like biology. If your student is, going to go to a trade school for something in the medical field, I would say biology would be a must. But now you've got this whole open door of what is your student interested in? Animal, veterinary, pre-vet, animal science, anything like that is great. Astronomy, we've had several different eclipses lately, and so a lot of students have really been getting into astronomy, and that's been good. Forensic science has gotten really popular with some of the TV shows that have been on recently. You can do ecology or environmental science or geology. Anybody that's in Florida, you've got a great opportunity to do like marine science or oceanography, any of those things. I would really make this something that your student really enjoys or something that could help them in their future desires. For instance, if you have a student that maybe has opened up their own lawn service, maybe you want to do horticulture or maybe even plant biology, things like that. Things that will help them in their future plans is where we want to focus. So any of those options would be super. And really it's up to you and the student to find something that they would really enjoy and that would help them further on. So then we have social studies, and I'm going to have questions as soon as I finish social studies. So for social studies, number 1, no matter which path you're going, you've got to have U.S. history. And U.S. history should start with discovery and go through present day. And some courses will divide that, almost kind of like a college would do it, where they would do discovery to Civil War and then Reconstruction to present day. If you want to use that type of a curriculum, really kind of going deeper into kind of the history of the U.S., then I would say that'd be just fine. Give 2 credits for the U.S. history, dividing it up like that. And remember, English reading doesn't necessarily have to be for English. Reading can be for history or even science. So that's definitely an option. And then you have to have, in addition to the U.S. history, you have to have 2 other social studies credits. And so what you might want to do on that is, let's say your student wants to be a travel agent. Well, then you would want to do an in-depth world geography course. Or let's say, they want to work with children or maybe become a police officer. So they might want to do child development or criminal justice. Any of those would be social studies. Also, psychology and sociology count for social studies. Other good ones would be like U.S. government. You could cover that when you cover U.S. history, or even economics, depending on what your student is wanting to do. So all of those will count for social studies. Also, if you've got a student wanting to go on the mission field, you can do things like world religions or comparative religion or worldview. All of those would count for social studies credit. Just remember, if you're putting together your own curriculum, which a lot of people do for some of these courses, just make sure that your student spends about 150 hours of class time to get that full credit. So that would kind of seal the deal for that. But most of the time when we put together our own curriculum, it's very comprehensive. So that would work. So does anybody have any questions about science or social studies? Okay, so Teresa asked, would courses focused on learning how to teach count as social studies? I think that would depend on how it was set up. I think things like the psychology and the sociology, which are both things that you would use in the classroom, would count. That might be something, if you've got an idea of a course, that you could email me about, and we could see if it would count for social studies or if it would be an elective. I'd be happy to look at that for you. And then Diana, social studies and history are the same thing. So I know it kind of sounds different, but really they're the exact same thing. So any history would be a social studies course. And so I'm not quite sure about wrapping them together and kind of what you mean about that. But if you are interested in that, shoot me an email and let's talk about it and we'll figure that out. So creation science would be a science, and that would be just fine to have for a science. Colleges are probably not going to accept that, but if you have a student that's not going to a university, then it would be just fine, and the creation science would be a great option. I know we have a lot of students that have been taking similar courses to that and really enjoying it. So, and you know, that would also tie in somewhat if you have a student that was going to go to Bible college or be a missionary, they would probably really enjoy that. So do we have any other science or social studies questions? All right, so let's go ahead and look at the other requirements. So we need, your student's going to need 1 credit minimum of PE, physical education. And this would be anything that would get the heart rate up. It can be competitive sports, individual sports, team sports with the church, going to the gym with mom or dad, dance, anything like that. And that would be the 150 hours. So when your student has pretty much done 150 hours, then you can give that credit. Now, you don't have to give it all in 1 year. Oh, excuse me. They can earn it even in quarter credit increments all 4 years, or they could, you know, do something like martial arts in 9th grade for half a credit, and then maybe swimming in the 10th grade for half a credit. Any way you want to divide it and work it, you can do PE that way. And then health is like a cousin to PE, whereas PE is the physical part, health is the more academic part. So health, there's usually a textbook, and it's going to cover things like drug and alcohol abuse, nutrition, pulmonary and circulatory systems, all the things like that. And that's just a 1 semester half credit course, but it is required. And then you have the personal finance, which we touched on a little bit earlier with consumer math. Personal finance is a 1 semester half credit course as well. Consumer math can count for personal finance. The only thing is it can't count for both. You can't give 1 credit consumer math and math and then also give it a half a credit in personal finance. The only way we'd be able to divide that up is give half a credit to math and half a credit to personal finance. A lot of people that we found, a lot of our students tend to do like the Dave Ramsey or the Crown Ministries personal finance course. Also, I believe Matthew C. has a stewardship course, and that would work as well. So all of those things would count for that personal finance requirement. So remember, when you're on this goal-based list, you still have to have the same number of credits. We're just not telling you what those specific courses within the credits have to be. We're not saying you have to have biology and chemistry. We're saying you can pick. So that's kind of a difference. So let's go ahead and answer some questions. Counseling courses, depending on what that is, that would probably count for social studies, but at the very least, it would count for an elective. And then therapy with horses. Oh my goodness, she could definitely do so many courses leading into that, not just about psychology and working with different, disabilities, mental, physical, whatever, but then also about the horse and the biology and mental stability of the horse. That would definitely count. So cross country in the fall and track in the spring, yes, you could give him a half a credit for each sport each year. He would definitely earn that. And if a lot of the health requirements are covered in science, can I still credit it without adding more curriculum? Yes and no. We definitely always kind of like to bundle our curriculum like that. It makes things easier for everybody. Just make sure that you maybe get a health book and go through their table of contents and make sure that everything is covered. Because, for instance, in a biology class, not everything is covered that's covered in health, because you do have like the drug and alcohol abuse and things like that, and those are not usually covered in any other course but health. So yes, you can combine some of it and then just fill in where it's not being taught somewhere else, and that would be just fine. Okay, so let's go on now to electives. Now this is when it's really fun, because now you can do whatever your student needs. You have a minimum of 6 electives that you have to use, and it can be anything from art to music to some of these extra educational and psychology courses that we're talking about, to extra Bible study. Anything like that can all count for your electives. And really focus on what your student needs to be able to meet their specific goal. We are super casual with credits, with the elective credits, because we really want that to be an opportunity for the student to focus his time on what he enjoys and what he needs to learn to move forward. So I know it's kind of hard. It seems like we're in this place where everyone thinks, oh, you've got to go to college to be successful. And that is not true. There have been stories upon stories, and I'm going to stop my share here. There have been stories upon stories of the lack of vocational plumbers, electricians. In fact, I'm doing some work on my house right now, and I'm having a heck of a time finding an electrician for a very small job, which is probably why I'm having trouble. But, things like laying tile and things like that, those are, as far as earning, earning a living, they are great options. And so we want to make sure that everyone recognizes that God calls every student to do something different. And we want that student to be able to do what they're called to do and be successful in it. That's what's really important. I want to warn one more time, because I know we had some people come in a few minutes late. I really recommend that you, unless you know for certain, due to maybe a family business or a learning disability or something, that your student is not going to go to college, to go ahead and start on the college prep path until about 11th grade, when you've got a better idea of things, because you can't go back. You can't go back and earn 4 credits in 2 years of math that stacks. It's impossible. So that would be something that I would really advise you to do. Do you have to? No, you're the parent. This is your call. But we've just seen it here in the office where students have had doors closed simply because they changed their mind. And the whole point of homeschooling is to have as many doors open as possible for each of our students. And so we just want to make sure that that's it. But by the same token, we all need the trades. We all know that our students are gifted in different ways. I don't know about you, but I dearly love my hairdresser. I'm so thankful that she cuts my hair because I cannot do that. And so there's nothing, to be worried about or anything. We just want our kids to be where they're best slated and where they're going to fit in the best. So that's kind of what I wanted to do this webinar for, is for parents who have students that may not be on a college track, to give them ideas of what they can do with their student. I'm really, really big on involving your student. Take them down to pick out some books. Let them go to the bookstore with you, because when they buy in, you don't have to do as much work because they're enthusiastic and they're excited about it. And we definitely, definitely want that. All right, so a couple of last minute notes, and then I'm going to open it up for all questions. Okay, so I want to touch base with you about the portfolio. The portfolio is part of the Apple Core grading system. I would say if you think your student is going to go into the workforce, go into the military, something like that, what I would recommend is every semester when you enter those grades and credits, that you also enter what they did in the portfolio. Things like their job experience, their leadership, different things that they've learned, internships, anything like that. Because then you can take that and fill out a job application. It's basically your student's resume, but it's part of that official transcript record. So I would definitely say, if you have a student that's thinking about doing something a little bit out of the box, to be sure and keep that portfolio up. You can include awards, you can include job experiences, you can include leadership and service opportunities. Just keep track of anything like that, any type of, if they've worked with somebody or shadowed somebody, include that in the portfolio. That will really, really help you later. So a couple more things, and then we're going to open it up for questions. Truly, not everybody loves to read, but you can get books on Audible many times for free. I have a son who struggles with reading. He's not a bad reader, but he tends to be slow and he gets frustrated. All during school, I would get him Audible books, and he would listen and listen, and he knew just as much as my girls who had read them. That's just how he learned best. So always look for options that's going to encourage your student and help them to learn the best that they possibly can. Also, especially if your student is not college bound, but is going out into the adulting world, go deeper, not faster. Really make sure that they have the tools to make smart decisions, to know how to handle finances, to know how to manage people if they're going to be in a hiring situation. All of that stuff. Really make sure that you give them the tools, because it's almost like when they graduate, they think that they don't need parents or parental advice anymore many times. And so as much as possible as you can kind of get in them while they're still young, go ahead and do it. And then the other thing is if you get a curriculum that you think is going to be great and you or your student hates it, it's not working well, drop it, get something else. Don't spend all year beating your head against the wall, or your student beating the head against the wall for something that they're not going to get any benefit out of anyway. Sell it on the secondary site, sell it to friends, do whatever you want to do. It might work great for their kids. It just didn't work for yours. And change. Don't feel like you have to stay with everything. We can change it in Apple Core and it's no big deal. Um, so that's kind of what I have to encourage you. I really, really want you to go away from this thinking, wait a minute, we can do whatever we need to do to best serve our student. And that's what we want you to do. So I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions, but following up, if you come up with some questions or you're talking to your student about this webinar and another question pops up, please don't hesitate to send me an email at karen@homelifeacademy.com, and let's talk about it. And let's figure out some different options and different things that you can do, because that's easy. We can brainstorm all day long and it's free. So definitely take care of that. Okay, so questions. Other than course exams, are there required tests for non-college bound students? Well, HLA does not require testing at all. We do not require end of course exams, and we do not require the ACT or the SAT unless there are very specific situations and you would be notified. You know, if you're not sure about your student, you can go ahead and in 11th grade and let them take a test or two and see what happens. That's certainly not a bad idea because, like I said, kids change their minds and you might get stuck and it just may not be good. So it's definitely not a problem to do that, but it's also not required. So whatever you feel like is best, do that. So Renee wants to know if in the portfolio, do summer missions and jobs go before the grade or after the grade? Renee, that was the best question. I forgot to say that earlier. Summer school is always tied to the previous year. That's because the school year starts on August the 1st and it ends on July 31st. So summer school after ninth grade would still be part of ninth grade. So that's a perfect question, and definitely include those mission trips and summer work projects and things as part of the portfolio. That's very, very important that you keep all that information. And plus we forget. I mean, I don't even know what I ate for dinner last night, hardly. And so when you think about what did they do 3 years ago, I don't know. And so it's so nice to have it in the portfolio. So Teresa, would weekend clinics and trainings count for credits at all? Absolutely. That would completely work. You want to do the time thing. So you want to do something like 75 hours is a half a credit, or you want to do like content. So let's say that they met for a whole week and they worked for 40 hours, but then they did that for a month. So that would be a total of 120. So you're almost to a full credit right there. And so what you could do to finish up that full credit is maybe have them write a paper or do a PowerPoint presentation about the whole experience or what they learned. And then that would definitely earn additional credits. Yes, certification would go in the portfolio. And then the process to become certified would definitely count towards credits. So you would mark kind of what the title or the content or what she's learning as your course title, and you would give the credit, whatever they earned, from a quarter to a full credit. And then in the portfolio, it will give you lots of room to tell about it. So I would, give lots of detail and everything so that later you can pull that back up and you'll have it. So yes, that would be absolutely perfect for you to do that. So you can see the flexibility that's here when we do a life path plan. So just kind of keep in mind that children do change their mind, or I should say students, they get mad when I say children, but students do change their mind. So maybe start off a little bit on a college path, but then based on what they want to do, then you've got options to fill in. So I don't see any other questions, but if you have any, again, don't hesitate to email me. And I need to ask you a favor. We're kind of working on the webinars and trying to really serve our families through them. If you would please fill out, there's just a short, like a minute, this little survey at the end. If you would just fill that out for us and let us know what else you would like to see or what else we can do, we would definitely want to do that. And tomorrow an email is going to go out giving you the link to this presentation. So if you have a friend that couldn't watch for whatever or needs to see it or whatever, then you can have it, or you can go back and look at it if you just kind of need a refresher course or something like that. In fact, it's going to have the links to all three that we've done this week, which is College Bound and Florida College Bound, and then um, the life choice path. So we just really want to make sure that we're giving our families all the facts that they need, all the options. We want to give you all the choices, and we just want to make sure that this is a positive plan for y'all. So that being said, thank you so much for stopping by.